Welcome back to another episode of Money with Jacob, coming to you every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is where you send me your money questions and I will answer them like they are my own. And look, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. In fact, I have no financial license of any kind at all, but I do have a simple philosophy which has got me to where I am today, 28 years old, over $700,000 in a stock portfolio, and 100% debt-free. So if you got any money questions, you want some simple philosophy applied to them, my opinion applied to them, be sure to email me your questions at jacobbuildswealth@gmail.com or drop me your questions in the comment section below. I'll take them anywhere I can get them. And before we get started today, we have 3 questions, but I am asking you a favor, which is I need a CFA or a CFP to come onto the show with me and walk me through a 401k and retirement question. I want to get a real professional's advice or at least opinion, right? So if you are a CFA, a financial advisor, or a CFP, a financial planner, please email me, reach out to me, drop me a comment below, or if you know of anybody that is one, have them reach out to me too. It'd be a huge help. So let's kick it off. We do have 3 questions today. Number 1 is coming from Tyler. Tyler writes, "Hey Jacob, I'm 27 and graduated 3 years ago with my MBA. I live and work in Chicago, and my only debt is student loans. I've got about $97,000 left, down from $131,000 when I graduated. My interest rate is 4%, and I've been making the minimum monthly payments of around $1,326 with about 7 years left on the loan. I'm single, no kids, and work as a data analytics engineer, making about $85,000 a year after tax. I've been renting since graduation, paying about $1,800 a month for a studio apartment. It's not fancy, but honestly, it doesn't get much cheaper in the city. Lately, it's been bugging me because it feels like I'm just throwing money away on rent. I've been looking at homes around $300,000, and if I put 10% down, $30,000, which I already have saved, a 30-year mortgage would come out to a little under $1,700 a month, which is less than my rent. I know you're big on being debt-free, but when I run the math, buying a home actually seems like the smarter move. What do you think?" Tyler, your math adds up, man. I mean, this is why people stop renting and buy a home. It makes sense for home ownership. You trade your rent for a mortgage, and over time, you get that house, which is the appreciating asset. Your math totally adds up, and I get it. I agree with it. The thing is there's a time and place for home ownership for everyone in their life, and you have not got to that part of being able to own a home yet. You simply can't afford it. It looks and sounds like you might be able to based on running your numbers and having an $85,000 salary, but you have $97,000 of debt. And we are not going to add debt on top of debt. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. So I want to run you through a couple things. Number 1 is the cost of home ownership. I was looking on Zillow at $300,000 condos for sale in Chicago. They're like 2 bedrooms, 1,200 square feet, probably a big step up from your studio apartment. Looking at them, it does come out to about a $1,600 mortgage per month if you put down 10% on a $300,000 condo for 30 years. So you're right on that, but I don't think you're calculating in all the hidden costs. You're also going to have PMI, private mortgage insurance, which is going to be $225 a month, more or less. Property taxes in Illinois are expensive. So let's call that $275 a month. You're going to have home insurance. And then on top of that, there's probably some building or skyscraper cost, wherever it is you're going to be living. And we'll call that $100 a month. I think the real cost of your total monthly payment is you're looking at about $2,344, not just $1,600 to $1,700. Plus, you need to account if you go get a realtor, you're going to have realtor fees that you're going to have to pay. If anything goes wrong in your building, your apartment, you're going to have to pay those fees for that. You're basically trying to buy a house and then have $0 to your name, which is a really bad idea. Now, I don't think that you're actually worried about burning money up on rent. I think you're just tired of being in a studio apartment, and I feel you, brother. Like, I want you out of that chicken coop. I live in a pretty small apartment myself. It is 2 bedrooms, but it feels small and I want out of here. So I understand you loud and clear, and let's get you out of there, dude. But if you were really worried about not burning cash, I want to take a look at the loan. So it sounds like you have a 10-year loan right now, and it was for $131,000, a 4% interest rate. looking at that loan, the total payment you'll make over 10 years is $159,000, meaning that you'll pay in interest a total of $28,000. You're paying the minimum payments right now, which means that you're going to pay this full almost $30,000 in interest. If you're worried about burning cash, get rid of this loan, man. You're just giving interest to Sally Mae or Fannie Mac or whoever it is that you're paying your loan to. So that's a lot of money, $30,000. I mean, that's over 1 year's worth of rent right now, and you're complaining about paying rent, but you're paying this interest. Let's get rid of the loan. Now, ultimately, though, the last thing I'm thinking about is the risk of getting a mortgage and adding that to your student loan. So if you have a $300,000 condo, you put 10% down, $30,000, you're asking for a $270,000 mortgage. And then you have $97,000 in student loans. That's $367,000 of debt on your shoulders, just like that, 27 years old. Oh, I want to vomit. Like, that makes me want to vomit. I want to throw up. I'm worried for you. If you see that number and you're not worried, like, I'm really worried for you, man. And it is just so much debt. What happens if you lose your job tomorrow? It's not just debt. Look at it as risk. If you lose your job tomorrow, you're going to owe $367,000 to people. That's over $3,000 a month in payments. You have no time to figure it out. You need a new job ASAP. And it won't matter to you if you like the job or not, because all you'll be thinking about is, I have to make my payments, or else you go deeper and deeper and deeper into the hole. You get evicted from your house. Your interest starts to add up on your student loans. Your credit starts to get shot. Oh my God, man, that's stress. That's anxiety. I'm a man of peace, as little stress as possible, and no anxiety. And this just screams the opposite. There's no way you can look at that number, $367,000, and say that feels good, that feels like the right decision. Now, I want you out of your studio apartment. I want you to be in a home someday. That is the American dream. And there are 6 steps to the American dream. I created these 6 steps. I didn't create them, right? These are like common sense 6 steps, but these are the order that I put them in. And you're on step about 2. And step 6 is getting a house. So let's go through these together. Step number 1 is create a budget. It sounds like you do have an idea of what your money is, what you're bringing in, what you're spending. Step 2 is save a $1,000 safety net. You already have $30,000 saved. We're going to drain that down by $29,000 and make it just $1,000. So step 3 is pay off all your debt except your house. You don't have a house. Sounds like the only debt you have are your student loans. Step number 4 is save 4 full months of an emergency fund. Step 5 is invest 15% of your household income. Step 6 is then begin saving or working towards buying a house. You're on step 2. Step 6 is where we want to get you. So taking a look at your finances, I have it pulled up on a chart here. You have an income of $85,000 a year, which is about a little over $7,000 a month. Your rent comes into $1,800 a month. You have your student loans, $97,000, $1,326 a month, and then you have cash of $30,000. Right now, your expendable income, your cash flow, after paying your student loans and your rent is $3,957, and then you have cash of $30,000. We are going to pay off these student loans and get you into a house. This is my plan. Let's take a look at my plan. I see this and I see that I have income of $85,000 a year, $7,000 a month. I'm going to drain the cash down from $30,000 down to $29,000, and I'm just going to hold on to $1,000 of cash. I'm going to put that $29,000 to my student loans. We can knock those down from $97,000 to $68,000, just like that, dude. Just like that, overnight. We're cutting these by a third, 30% down. That's a lot, all right? And I know this sounds nerve-wracking. You're only going to have $1,000 for an emergency, but that's all you need. You were just willing to put all $30,000 for a down payment on a house and go to zero. There's no reason we can't put that same amount towards the loans and basically go to zero. And $1,000 is going to cover you between working your job, having cash flow, and $1,000 in a bank account. You're going to be good. So your student loans are going to be $68,000. That's $3,783 a month you're going to be paying. We're like doubling, tripling the amount of payments you're making a month. That is an additional $2,457 a month. That is great. Your rent is $1,800 a month. Income after expenses now. You were at $3,957. We're dropping that down to $1,500 a month. You can live on $1,500 a month in Chicago. It will mean that you're not going out to restaurants. It will mean that you're not buying new clothes. It will mean that you're not really doing much of anything except paying off your student loans. But this is where you have to ask yourself, how bad do you want to get a house and how bad do you want to do it in a responsible, disciplined manner? This is the way to do it. So you're going to have your income after your expenses, $1,500 a month, cash $1,000. If you follow this plan, if you follow the same plan that I would follow, you will be debt-free in 19 months. You'll be 29 years old. I think you can get into a house at the age of about 31. But this is the responsible way to do it. This is the way to build wealth. Right now, what you're doing is you're trying to do mathematical jumping jacks. You're trying to make the math work for you, and it's just not working for you. You want it to work for you. You want to get out of your studio apartment, but the way you're wanting to do it is dangerous. It is not the way to do it. And I have myself paid off $44,000 in student loans. It sucks. It feels awful. It feels like you're really burning money, just throwing money to the loan payments, because at least with like a car payment, you can drive around in your nice car, or credit cards, you can buy nice stuff and have it in front of you. No one's sitting in a chair looking at their diploma on the wall. So I know it's not fun, man, but how bad do you want to get into a house and how bad do you want to do it responsibly is totally up to you. This is what I would do. All right, let's move on to question number 2, coming from Ted. I wonder if you're a Theodore Ted or an Edward Ted. I do like the name Ted, though. All right. Hey, Jacob. I've heard you mention that you're a big fan of Vanguard's VOO S&P 500 ETF and that it provides enough diversification to last an investor for 3 lifetimes. I did say that. But with how top-heavy the S&P 500 has become, especially with the Mag 7 making up such a huge chunk, are you at all worried about that concentration risk? Ted, this is like the buzz right now in the ETF investment index, S&P 500 world, whatever. And you are right. So I want to pull up a chart coming from Standard & Poor's website. They're the folks making S&P. And in the chart, it shows Mag 7 weight in the S&P 500. And it shows the entire market cap of the S&P 500. And right now in 2025, 35% of the market cap is concentrated in those 7 names, which is Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, Tesla. Did I get all 7? So yeah, 35% of the entire S&P 500 is wrapped up in those 7 names. It sounds crazy. It is a lot. It is up a lot also just from 2001, which was 25%. But I think what happens is a lot of folks start looking at these numbers and looking at these things too in an abstract form. We just say Mag 7, and we just say stocks, and we just say markets and concentration and S&P 500. But what a lot of people forget are these are real underlying businesses with real people waking up, going to work every day, and working to make money at these businesses. So instead of just looking at this in like this abstract way, I want to break this down and show you some data compared to Nvidia and Intel. Both of these companies are in the S&P 500. So from 2020 to 2024, Nvidia's revenue went from 16 billion to 130 billion. That means they grew revenue by 712%. Over that same time, their stock was rewarded tremendously, up 3,900%. And right now, the weight in the S&P 500 is Nvidia has 7.29% of the entire market cap of the S&P 500. But when I see a business like this, I'm like, well, that makes sense. That's a phenomenal business. That's incredible. I mean, if you ran a business, if you've ever been an entrepreneur, you know anything at all about business, whenever you're growing your revenues from 712% over 4 years, not even mind the fact these are in the billions of dollars, pretty good. I mean, everyone would be like, I want a piece of your business. Now compare that to Intel. Their revenue from 2020 to 2024 went down from 77 billion to 53 billion. So their revenue is down 31%. Their stock lost 32%. If you had invested in Intel alone in 2020 to now, you're down 32%. The weight in Intel in the S&P 500 is 0.28%. So we have 7% of the entire S&P in the Nvidia, incredible, phenomenal business, and 0.28% in Intel. So if someone came to you as a private investor and was like, hey, I got this business that's increasing revenue 712% that you can invest into called Nvidia, and they came to you and say, there's also another business called Intel, which has declining revenues over the past 4 years of 31%, you can invest into this one too. Which one are you going to choose? You're going to choose Nvidia. Now, being diversified investors in the S&P 500, the folks running the S&P over at Standard & Poor, or if you're doing Vanguard's VOO or whatever, and they're deciding how to weigh this just a little bit. They're saying we're going to give more money to NVIDIA. If you have $10, we're going to give $7 of it to NVIDIA, and we'll put 28 cents of it into Intel. To me, that makes sense. Probably as a good investor, we'd put 0 cents of it into Intel, but we still want to be diversified. Now, the folks that are worried about concentration risk are saying we should have the equal amount invested into each one of these companies. And to me, that doesn't make sense at all. So if you wanted to be equal weight, we would say, like, I have $10, I'm going to put 24 cents into NVIDIA and 24 cents into Intel. I don't think that makes sense. So looking at it just from getting away from the abstract and looking at these as real businesses, there's a reason that we have so much concentration in the top 7 names, and it's because their businesses are so much better than the rest of the S&P 500. So I don't think concentration is bad as long as it's in good businesses. Now, we're going to look at a stock chart of Intel to NVIDIA, and we can see that just a little before 2020 to now, Intel's down that 38%, NVIDIA's up over 3,200%. This is what it looks like on the graph, and this is why we want to be concentrated in the name NVIDIA, for example, just one of the 7 Mag 7 names, instead of being more concentrated into Intel or even have it be equal. I don't want to be equal in this. This looks like garbage. All right. So pulling up the Mag 7 weight in the S&P 500 and then also performance of Magnificent 7 stocks in the S&P 500. The number one concern about having concentration into the S&P 500 or the Mag 7 into the S&P 500 is a lot of investors are worried that if just those 7 names start to fall, then it's going to completely kill the entire index and we're all at the mercy of 7 names. But I want to show you that in 2022, the S&P 500 was down 19%. And this data comes from JP Morgan. So the S&P 500 was down 19%. That Magnificent 7 over the same time was down 40%. The S&P 500, if we didn't have the Magnificent 7 in it, was down 12%. So there was only a 7% difference of having a huge concentration in the Magnificent 7 in 2022 versus if you didn't. You only lost 7% more. And whenever we take a look at the Mag 7 weight in the S&P 500 in 2022, it was about 30%. Today it's 35%. So it really wasn't that bad. And whenever we look in 2023, whenever the market rebounded, the S&P returned 24%, including the Mag 7. The Mag 7 alone returned 76%. If you were invested in the S&P 500 in 2023 without the Magnificent 7, you only got 11%. So you got over double the return because you had a huge concentration in those 7 names. So it's like, okay, with the concentration, when the market went down, we only lost 7%. But with the concentration, whenever the market went up, we got over 13% extra in gain. To me, that's worth the trade-off. We want the concentration. Again, concentration is only bad if you're invested into bad names. You're concentrated in bad names. Now, last thing I want to show, this comes from Fidelity, a chart from Fidelity, which shows the top 50 names, the top 50 companies in the S&P 500 versus the bottom 450. So right now in 2025, the percent of the market cap in the top 50 names, not just the Mag 7, but also the other 43, is 63% of the S&P 500 is concentrated into 50 names. Only 37% are in the bottom 450. Now, the interesting thing about this is this is not a new phenomenon. If we go all the way back to 1962, the top 50 names in the S&P 500 actually contributed to 67%, and the bottom 450 was 33%. Again, in the 1970s, it was 66%, and then the bottom 450 was 34%. So where we're at today is not even a record amount of concentration. And if we think about where the stock market is today versus where it was in 1962, we're at all-time highs. We're up tremendously in the S&P 500. So I'm not worried at all about this concentration risk. It's nothing that we haven't seen before, and in fact, I actually think it's good. Now, if you still don't think that the concentration is good, there is a ETF called RSP ETF, and this is the equal weight S&P 500, where in the ETF, they try to distribute an equal amount of shares across all the businesses in there. So whenever we compare RSP to VOO, I pulled up a comparison of the top 10 assets in each one. We can start to see an RSP equal weight ETF. Intel gets 0.3%, AMD 0.2%, Micron 0.26%, Dell 0.24%. It's pretty much 0.24 to 0.3% equal weight holding across the entire index, versus if you go over to the VOO, Nvidia's at 7.76%, Tesla's at 1.71%, Broadcom's at 2.5%, and so it varies based on how they want to weigh out those holdings. So the last thing though is you do need to be aware that if you invest into an equal weight ETF, I'm pulling up a chart of the S&P versus the equal weight going back 10 years. The S&P 500, Vanguard's VOO, is up 221%. If you were to have invested $10,000 in 2015 into Vanguard's VOO, that $10,000 is up 220%, equaling $41,000 today. If you were to have invested 10% into the equal weight instead, the RSP equal weight, that is up 139%, only $30,000. So you're missing out on $11,000 more in gains over the past 10 years. So I actually think that there's more risk in equal weighing everything than there is in concentrating. And that's because in the equal weight, every single quarter, if one stock like Nvidia starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger, they start to sell those shares and then purchase more of Intel. And Peter Lynch has probably the greatest quote of all time when it comes to selling good stocks, selling your winners and buying your losers. And he said, selling good stocks and buying bad stocks is like cutting your flowers and watering the weeds. And I think that's what people are doing in the equal weight ETF. I think you're losing more by being not concentrated than buying being concentrated. So that was it. You can make your own investment decisions, but I will stick to the regular S&P 500. I think the equal weight is not good. All right, question number 3, the last question coming from Sarah. Sarah says, hey, Jacob, is having a car payment really that bad if the interest rate is low? Low. All right, Sarah, I want to tell you something. Millionaires in the U.S., 18% of millionaires have a car payment. And I believe it's because millionaires build good habits, which make them millionaires. And they don't make good habits after they become millionaires, right? So good habits make millionaires, not millionaires make good habits. And there's also another idea that the best way to become somebody you want to be is just to imitate them. Millionaires don't have car payments, 18% do, but the other 82% don't. I don't care if a car payment is 0%. I'm not ever going to take out a car loan, ever. Even at 0% interest rate. And let me walk you through this. The average used car loan in the US right now is about $23,000. Now, most people are just putting down a little bit of a down payment, but let's say for the sake of this argument here, I'm going to say let's put down a $10,000 down payment. So then you get a $13,000 loan at 0% interest. I don't care if this is 4%, 5%, or 0%. We're going to go 0% interest. That means you would have 60 months of payments for 5 years. 60 months is 5 years, $216 a month. At the end of those 5 years, that'd be $13,000. At the same time, cars depreciate by 10% a year. So in 5 years, your $23,000 car, you put $10,000 down for it, you got a loan for $13,000. In 5 years, that $23,000 car is worth $13,500. In 10 years, it's only worth $8,000. This is why millionaires don't take car payments out, because they're putting money into a depreciating piece of metal that just goes down in value. This isn't building wealth, this is lighting your wealth on fire. You're trading years and years and years of wealth building for literally a piece of metal. So what I want to do is say, why can't I buy a used car in cash instead? We know that there are $10,000 used cars out there. Instead of putting a down payment down for a car, getting a $13,000 loan, let's just use the money we have and say, let's buy a used car in cash for $10,000. Instead of making 60 months of payments at $216 a month, let's instead invest that money. Because you have the money. If you can make the payment, you can make the investment. So let's instead invest $216 a month for the next 60 months. That would come out to $13,000 over the next 5 years. If you invest that into Vanguard's VOO S&P 500 ETF, in 5 years, you will have $15,824. your total contributions would be about $13,000, and your future value of $15,824. You're getting almost $3,000 back just from compound interest from your investment, the stock market returning you money. So at the same time your car is going down in value, your investments could be going up in value. This is why millionaires become millionaires with good habits. Now, if you just take that $15,000, that $15,824 to be exact, and you leave it in the stock market, and you never, ever, ever, ever touch it again for the next 25 years, that same amount grows into $171,000. You put in $15,824, you left it there for 25 years, and it grows to $171,000. This is what we're trading off whenever we're taking out car payments and buying cars we can't afford. We are trading off hundreds of thousands of dollars for leather seats and Bluetooth. It is one of the worst decisions that people make in their financial lives, because the most expensive thing you'll probably ever buy is your house, and the second most expensive thing you'll ever buy is your car, and your car only goes down in value. People are trading off years, decades, generational wealth here for leather seats and Bluetooth. So this is why I will never take a car payment out. And I'm not against having nice cars. I'm not against people driving nice cars. But I do have a rule, which is you should never have more than 10% of your entire net worth wrapped up into a single asset except for your house. That includes your car. So if you have $200,000, you can afford a $20,000 car. If you have $400,000, you can afford a $40,000 car. But the problem is we have millions of Americans who have $5,000 to their name driving around in $30,000 cars. That seems a little lopsided, right? We're not doing that. That is not how we build wealth. So I have $700,000. I drive a $3,000 car. I've never had a car payment in my life, not because I'm fortunate, but because I have said I will walk over buying a car. Now, I know that's a bit ridiculous, but I probably wouldn't do it. If you need a car and you need a $5,000 car and you only have $1,000, take a loan out for $4,000 and go get a $5,000 car. I understand we all need transportation. Okay, we're not literally going to walk, but that's just the mentality of I will never have a car payment. And pay that loan off as fast as you can. So don't use a car payment, ever. It's just stealing. You are stealing and stealing and stealing away so much of your future for a car. It's not worth it. By the time that you do build wealth, like I bet by the time you were to actually have $200,000 or $300,000 and you say, hey, I can afford a $30,000 car, you would go to the car lot and say, do I really want to set $30,000 on fire right now? And you would probably still end up buying a $10,000 car, even though you have lots of money, unless you're a complete car fanatic. All right, that was Money with Jacob every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to email me your questions at jacobbuildswealth@gmail.com, or again, write them below to me. I will see you next Tuesday.